Welcome back to Uninformed Movie Reviews, the movie review podcast where every word is accentuated.
Well done, Danny. And today, we got a movie ranking for y'all guys, and we will be ranking the films of Edgar, not wrong, but oh so right.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, thank you. It wasn't very hard.
That was silly. I guess Edgar Wright has 5 major motion picture releases. I guess at this point it is fair to bring up that there's technically one movie that he wrote and directed that we're not talking about today, and that is A Fistful of Fingers.
That's right. This is his first film, right?
Yeah, his first film, which is it looks like a homemade movie. I watched the trailer on it. It looks funny. It looks like some of the gags really funny. I can't find it anywhere. It's not on YouTube. You can't download it. So we won't be talking about that one. We're only going to talk about the ones released to major release in theaters, I guess is the best way to qualify it.
And we're talking about the films that he wrote and directed.
Yeah. Although some of these he didn't write by himself. So just to throw out a clarification, because last episode we talked about Tarantino. That man likes to do a lot of it on his own. A couple times he shared the writing credit, but a lot of that stuff is just Tarantino.
Plus, so that easy to work with.
I'll open up the floor with what I think. I am anticipating that we all have the same number 5, because in my heart, I don't see there being any other movie here, but we'll see. And for number 5, I put The World's End.
Interesting.
Ooh, oh my gosh. Okay.
Interesting.
Controversy. Here we go.
Oh no, controversy.
I also have The World's End as my number 5. So why don't you make some arguments, dat boy?
I guess I didn't think that any part of the Cornetto Trilogy was going to be this low on the list.
Interesting. Okay.
But I gotta say, I saw this movie in theaters, and I thought it was okay, but I never thought I would watch it again. And it's Baby Driver. I did not like. I thought it was okay. As far as comparing it to the other Wright films, in terms of it's got great pacing. It's funny. But there's a couple of elements missing from it, namely that it's not any of the cast that you remember from the Cornetto Trilogy, which kind of carries his wit in the way that they deliver things so well, But as far as it's a really good action film. It's satisfying. It's got a good emotional component to it, but I just thought it wasn't highly rewatchable. And I think that's what brought it down there for me.
Interesting. Okay. I can see what you're saying about the Cornetto Trilogy and the cast. Especially because Simon Pegg wrote all of those movies with him. And I think this is Baby Driver is the only one that is just Edgar Wright, that he didn't write it with anyone else. So, I guess I think there is a difference in tone for sure. But this movie or Baby Driver, I should be specific, I almost was like, man, this could be number 2 for me. I really like Baby Driver.
Yeah, I had very similar feelings, and it was the last movie that I watched on the list, and I pretty much had a good idea of the list already in my head, and Baby Driver really messed things up for me, where I had to go back and do a lot of rethinking.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have it ranked, it's a short list, but much higher. I'd even say within 4 higher than that.
Oh my gosh.
Interesting.
Wow, okay.
Wow. So, I'd say if we have to deal with the rule of numbers, then I would be okay with putting The World's End where it is for you guys at number 5.
Okay.
Yeah, The World's End for me, it's it would actually make a lot of the same arguments that you had for Baby Driver. First time I watched World's End, I wasn't super stoked on the next time I was going to watch it. There was none a need to rewatch it. As a matter of fact, I haven't watched that movie in years, so a lot of this is fresh to me.
Yeah, me too.
I recently rewatched it.
The World's End, even though it is the same cast that you're used to bringing the heat, it doesn't hit the same way that Hot Fuzz or nowhere near the way Shaun of the Dead hits. You know what I mean?
I think that The World's End, they do have a lot of the cast that wasn't in Shaun of the Dead that's in Hot Fuzz in different roles in The World's End, which is really, was it Paddy Considine is in it, and he's one of the main characters, and he was really a short role in Hot Fuzz as one of the Andys. But another interesting tidbit is, I was just going to say, with with the World's End is it has a lot of the wit carried right, and the jokes really hit on good timing. But my problem with the World's End is that it's too long. To be honest.
Huh, okay.
It's too long, and in the third act, it really falls apart at the end. Like, there's a lot of rising climactic action, and then I guess just like part of the story, there's like a plateau, and then it's the whole actual World's End. The apocalypse part of it, I think, didn't need to be said. I feel like it could have ended as soon as the town was blown up, and things would have been fine.
Although it's really satisfying to watch Nick Frost and Simon Pegg just give it to the alien overlords and telling them, like, hey, we're humans. We screw stuff up all the time. It's what we do. Get out of here. Like, we're imperfect, and that's the way we like it.
You know, I think for the ending, this is the only one that feels its length to me. All the other movies just keep going, which is funny because Edgar Wright's so much about like all these really quick cuts, really fast editing. It's all very purposeful. But that one drags a little bit for me too. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's that the Cornetto Trilogy are all parodies of just genres. You know what I mean? And the third one, World's End, is really like Invasion of the Body Snatchers or like Stepford Wives, that kind of thing.
A lot of Stepford Wives vibes.
Yeah. And I don't have like a soft spot in my heart for that genre. And I think that might be part of the reason why I don't connect with it that much. Whereas Shaun of the Dead, I mean, obviously I love zombies. And then like buddy cop action movies, you know what I mean? Like Hot Fuzz really nails that.
Who doesn't love them, you know?
Yeah, those are hard for me to get over.
What I would say was one of the most interesting parts of the rewatch for The World's End was, I mean, initially I didn't think I was ever going to watch that movie again because initially I didn't really like it. But on rewatch, it was better than the first time I saw it for sure. But I think a lot of what was actually a good takeaway from watching it again was that the movie had it had some deeper meanings in it, in that, you know, Gary King is a very sad hero, but you get to see like a lot of his reconciliation in like a new world as finding purpose. You know what I mean? Because he's just someone who wants to.
His purpose is sad. It's just like not being able to let go of the past. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I've learned that like this is my problem, and then I'm just gonna stay here.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is he's someone that doesn't fit in the world as it is. So once the world isn't as it is, he fits perfectly.
Makes sense.
That's what I really like about the apocalypse thing, because I feel like the movie has this redemption arc going where you kind of predict how the movie's going to end. Like, oh, Gary King's going to save the day, and then he's going to realize he needs to be more adult, and that's going to be the end of the movie. That's like the predictable ending. But then we find out that his big redemption moment actually like destroys the entire world. But in a way, the character finds his spot. But it's even funnier because really at the end, he has those, spoiler alerts, he has those like, they're not robots. They keep saying that the whole movie.
Blanks.
The blanks, the younger versions of his friends. So in a way, like he never grew out of it. He just like kept doing it. But yeah, like what you're saying, Danny, it's like the world has changed. So now it's okay.
Now it's okay for him to be Gary King.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of the weird part, like he changed from like in his like coming of age, really, because that's what like we see in this movie is like him like coming into his own. He goes from like murdering these not robots to like assumedly like actually murdering human beings, like clips afterwards.
Yeah. And he's you know what's one of my favorite cutscenes of the last part of the film is like you finally get like the the shot of the Cornetto as I guess as Nick Frost is like explaining what happened after, and he's just saying how humanity has changed, and then a wrapper of a Cornetto just like hits a fence, and it's the one thing in the movie, and he's just like, oh, and it just flies away.
Yeah, it's the perfect wrap up for the trilogy. It's hilarious. It's such a great little nod right at the end of it. And if someone's not familiar with this term, the Cornetto Trilogy is Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End. They're all with Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, and Edgar Wright, but they also all feature a Cornetto ice cream.
A different flavor.
Yeah, a different flavor too, because all the movies are different flavors.
That's right. The red being Shaun of the Dead,
yeah.
Blue being Hot Fuzz, and green being World's End.
It's too bad they didn't make the insides green in World's End, because they both have so much blue in them, like Hot Fuzz and World's End. They're both very blue movies.
I thought it was a really interesting change of the dynamic between Nick Frost and Simon Pegg too, because it's the one in which Nick Frost was the serious character for like probably 60 to 70% of the movie, and Simon Pegg was the one that was kind of lost in a fantasy world.
Yeah, that's true.
Versus Nick Frost in Hot Fuzz or Shaun of the Dead.
Hot Fuzz
reversal for the duo for sure.
Yeah, Hot Fuzz. Simon Pegg's a little bit different, but Nick Frost is always kind of like the idiot. So that
oh my god, he's cool so good in that movie.
Yeah, and Hot Fuzz is hilarious.
Moron.
Yeah.
So are we settling with World's End at 5?
I'm okay with World's End at 5. You know what? This is interesting because
another movie that would fit there, which I don't think, like, by any right they do. You know what I mean?
Well, I just think, like the Tarantino ranking, this is another one where it's like all 5 of these movies are really good, and a lot of them they might change depending on what like mood you're in, because each of these Edgar Wright movies do have a very specific flavor, like something you're in the mood for. So I could see that.
For Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, because it doesn't matter what mood I'm in, I'm down.
I'm down anytime.
For reals, those are great.
In fact, I paid $3 to watch Hot Fuzz again to rent it. So I was just like, why not?
Right on, man. That's a good decision to make. You know, I did have just 2 other little things about World's End. This one was a 2013 movie. I don't know if we said that already, but World's End came out after Scott Pilgrim, so it was kind of like there was a little bit of a break in the Cornetto Trilogy. World's End and Scott Pilgrim, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but neither one of them did particularly well either, which is you know, a little sad.
Scott Pilgrim was disappointing.
Yeah, Scott Pilgrim was a box office disappointment for sure. But there's a lot of cameos in this movie, like Danny was bringing up about other people from Hot Fuzz. The guy who plays Bilbo,
Martin Freeman.
Martin Freeman, there we go. He's in all 3 movies, and like every movie, he gets like his part gets a little bit bigger until this one.
More screen time.
Wait, yeah. I did not notice him in Shaun of the Dead.
He's in the.
Go for it.
Oh, sorry. He's in the opposite group when they meet up and they have those like mirror groups.
That's right.
He's the
Sean.
I guess. Well, he's not Sean because the girl's Sean.
Well, yeah. Well, he's
his girlfriend. He's
the Liz.
Yeah, he's Liz.
I always forget Liz's name. Like always. But I also always refer to the world as at World's End, and that's a Pirates of the Caribbean.
That's Pirates. I was doing the same thing all week.
I don't think that Paddy Considine is in Shaun of the Dead. The guy who plays, he's one of the Andys in Hot Fuzz, and then he is, oh gosh, I forgot his name, but he's pretty much the second protagonist in World's End. He's the one that ends up with Sam, Martin Freeman's sister.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he's in Hot Fuzz either. There's a couple guys who, like...
He is in Hot Fuzz.
Or sorry, yeah, I don't think he's in Shaun of the Dead either. The dad from Shaun of the Dead is in all 3 of them.
Yes.
Although in the last one, he's just the voice. He's the alien overlord's voice.
That's right. Also, the kid from Sean's work in Shaun of the Dead actually is in all 3 movies, but he drastically physiologically changes. He's lost a lot of weight.
Oh, the guy he's like, what are you, like 23? And he's like, I'm 17.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, you got red on you. But like, he's in Hot Fuzz as the other Andy, and he is in, I don't know if he's in The World's End actually, but he's also like a bigger star now too. He's like the bad guy in that flop of a Jurassic World movie too.
Really?
Yeah. It's really interesting. Yeah.
Well, a lot of the cameos too in World's End, a lot of them go back to Spaced, the Edgar Wright directed TV show that he did with Simon Pegg, and I always forget the girl's name. It's Jess something, but she's the female Shaun in Shaun of the Dead. So when you see them, they're like the stars of the show they did. That's
Jessica Stevenson.
There we go. And she's really funny in Spaced, but one of the bartenders in World's End is like the best character in Spaced, and it's really cool because it's the only one he shows up in. He's kind of like he's got
old
like
man.
He's got a gaunt face. He's not super old, and he's very nice and peaceful in World's End. But I can't remember which one it is. It's like bar 7 or 8. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, it's tough. There's a lot of bars.
Yeah, there's a lot of bars. But
Sir David Bradley shows up in Hot Fuzz and The World's End also.
Oh, he does. Yeah.
From Harry Potter.
From Harry Potter and Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. There are so many Game of Thrones actors in Hot Fuzz, actually. I think there's like 4 I counted.
Yeah, there's just a lot of British people. Like the drawing bin's real short. And then the last thing I just want to toss in, there's also, we get the second Bond appearance of the Cornetto Trilogy.
Oh yeah,
Brosnan.
shut up about that.
Oh,
Pierce Brosnan is Bond.
what an amazing role too.
Yeah, it's great.
It really
And
is.
then the other Bond, Timothy Dalton in Hot Fuzz as Simon Skinner, that's like one of the best roles in that movie too. So they bring the Bonds, and they're both bad guys, which I think is really cool too. I get a kick out of that.
So we're settling with Uninformed Movie Reviews official number 5 is The World's End 2013.
Boom, cue stamp logo. Well, we got to work on that.
Oh shoot. Okay, let me get that together.
Gotta get a stinger in here, you know?
You got to get the sound
Number
to this-
5.
Number
Oh
5.
my god. We could just hit Lou Bega's hit.
Bow, bow,
Bow.
bow. Every time we get to number 5, we'll do a Mambo number 5
It'll
joke.
be our 5 golden rings, but instead of Mambo number 5, baby.
That sounds way better. Okay, who wants to start talking about their 4?
I guess I'll start it off. Yeah.
Daniel San.
My number 4 is at this spot because it wasn't near and dear to me at the time. I don't have nostalgia goggles when I'm watching this movie, but I just recently did it for our CLE, and it's Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
All right.
Ooh,
Yes.
interesting.
Very interesting.
Controversial.
All right. Yeah.
I love this movie. I think it's a new classic for me now that I've watched it.
What's your number 4, Frank?
My number 4 is actually Hot Fuzz.
Oh
Wow.
my gosh.
I know.
My number
Oh my
4 is
God.
Baby Driver.
Whoa. Okay. Now you and I are starting to get a little bit closer.
Okay, we're in a pickle.
Yeah.
Man.
I'll just spoiler alert. Scott Pilgrim's my number 2.
Oh.
Same.
Oh my gosh.
No. Oh.
Danny is so upset right now. Sorry, Danny.
That's okay. That's okay.
But I guess the nature of this podcast is going to be like more than often. It's going to be like 2 people on the same page and 1 person who disagrees.
Yo,
That
I'm
seems to
so
be the
excited
trend.
for when we finally hit like the same list. Like that's gonna be so.
Oh,
Yeah, that seems to be the trend. I mean, all I can argue for Scott Pilgrim is that it's for me, the Cornetto Trilogy is Edgar Wright in my eyes, and like I feel like Scott Pilgrim is great, but I don't have the same kind of nostalgic pull towards it as I do for the other movies, and so that's why it's my reason on number 4.
And that makes total sense. You know what I mean? That movie's been part of your catalog for what, like 3 weeks now? You know what I mean?
True.
Where like adversely, I've seen Scott Pilgrim like countless times. Like I've rewatched that movie so many times. It's near and dear to my heart, and that's why it ended so high for me. You know what I mean?
yeah. This is
It's what I think is going to be the universal number 1 for all of us.
Oh my gosh. I think I agree with you though. Danny and I were talking about that. Oh, excuse me. I choked on some water. I'm dying over here.
It's
now.
hard to swallow water sometimes.
Water's like basic, dude. How do you choose like, or like even a smoothie?
That's what I'm here for. You know what I mean? Ugh, to mess up easy things. Scott Pilgrim is the second movie I saw with Michelle in theaters.
beautiful.
Yeah. I definitely have nostalgic value for Scott Pilgrim, and I'm definitely.
Did you have to defeat her 7 exes before you saw it?
No, I didn't actually. Dang.
Yeah, you lucked out, man. That was good for you.
Okay, so how are we going to finagle this? How are we going to bargain this out, guys?
So,
What are we willing to put it for?
I cannot saddle with Hot Fuzz being that low.
I also can't. I cannot abide.
I figured that, like, once we all discuss this right now. So, as a proposition to everybody at the table here, I have Baby Driver as my number 3, and I'm willing to concede it to 4.
It's a good sacrifice.
Okay,
The
let's
gods
talk
are
about
appeased.
let's talk about Baby Driver then, everyone.
All right.
So,
You guys mind if I take the wheel on this one?
Oh, please do.
when you put it that way,
Hey.
Is your name Jesus?
No.
Ah.
9. Don't be spreading that in the streets. So, Baby Driver. This was my first watch. I had never seen it before. I've only made jokes about like babies not being able to drive cars and didn't understand what the movie's about. Finally got to watch Baby Driver. And I think first impression, I was like glued. You know what I mean? I love like the way this kid plays like the stone-faced dude. And when he talks, it's like, it's exactly what it needs to be. The thing I love the most about this movie, my favorite feeling in life, and I'm sure you guys have felt this, is when like you got a playlist going on and it syncs up like perfectly to your life. And And Baby Driver's doing that throughout the entire movie. Like the gunshots are on beat, the car like starting and screeching, everything's on beat. And it's just, I don't know, it pulls me in and it keeps me glued there. And that's why, despite having like tons of nostalgia for the other movies that I ranked above and even below, like this movie really, I can't wait to watch it again. I'll put it that way.
It's a stellar action flick.
Texted you back last night, David, and was like, you know what? I'm coming over, dude. I'm down for watching.
Let's just watch it back to back. Yeah, the Baby Driver. It's funny that you say that about how the music lines up, because I was watching an interview with Edgar Wright, and he was saying that for this movie, they actually storyboarded the entire movie, like every angle, every shot. So they had this like 90-minute storyboard, and then they laid over all of the music. They cleared all of the licensing for the tracks before they started filming.
Wow.
So that they knew exactly how it was going to look and how it was going to line up with the sound cues. And there was even like Edgar Wright had reached out to James Gunn.
Oh.
To James Gunn, because Guardians of the Galaxy was going to be coming out right around the same time. And he wanted to make sure that they both weren't going to use the same 70s music, because they both feature a bunch of throwbacks.
That would have been embarrassing.
Yeah, that would have been embarrassing.
I mean, it's beautifully shot, and the cuts are just perfect. But that's like Edgar Wright, too. I mean, every cut is deliberate, right?
Yeah.
And even so much so that it can be part of the joke. Like in Hot Fuzz's case, there's so many jokes that have no words at all. They're just straight cuts from like the actual what the camera's perspective is on. And that's the same thing with Baby Driver, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a lot of comedy through motion. Like, he knows how to shoot a visual comedy, which is really cool. I thought this was also kind of interesting. He's been working on this movie since 1994. That's when he originally started planning it.
Damn, I was 3 years old when he started working on this movie.
Right? And in 2003, he did a music video for Mint Royale, and the song is called Blue Song. And he actually took the opening scene of Baby Driver, and he made the music video out of that. It was kind of like a test run of his idea. Except instead of Ansel Elgort as the star,
Weirdest name ever.
right? The guy who's dancing in the car is actually the guy from the Mighty Boosh.
Nick something. I can't remember his name. I'm gonna look it up right now.
I can't remember either. But Nick Frost is actually in that little music video too. He's one of the bank robbers. It's really cool.
Oh, Noel Fielding. That's who it is.
Noel Fielding, that's right. And you guys should check out that music video, although, to be honest, there's no point to now, because it's almost shot for shot what he does in Baby Driver, and he does it just way more successfully. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting. And also, hey, there's no CGI or green screens in any of the driving scenes. All of it is done with real cars shot like on actual streets. So hats off to you, Edgar Wright.
Right.
And I just like to make two more points that I actually made in the Tarantino. So it's funny that this lines up. I love a good car chase. And I love me some Jamie Foxx. You know what I mean? So I feel like this movie was, I don't know. It was definitely geared towards like me a little bit.
I'd say even substance-wise, the movie has a great story.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like the hero has an amazing like comeuppance, and I mean just the movie is like it pulls you in for the story for sure, but the photography makes sure you stay there. You know what I mean? And I don't know, it's just one of a kind.
This guy's actually like the character Baby. He's the only protagonist in any of these movies who's not like just an ass. Like, he's actually a good person.
Like, terrible.
Yeah.
That's true.
All the other ones are like super self-centered or, you know, one way or the other. But Baby is just like an honest, good guy. He gets wrapped up in a bad scene. But then at the end,
Many
like,
young men have found themselves in a sticky situation with that particular gentleman who will not be named here.
oh my gosh, yeah. There's a lot of jokes being made when I watch that movie. But it would have been easy to end the movie with him escaping. You know what I mean? But I think it's really interesting that Edgar Wright made it a point that even though, you know, he was more or less forced into the position, but he still had a choice in the end, and he still decided to do these things. So there is some atonement for the character, which I thought was really cool. I think it makes a lot of sense. And there's also, I'm so excited to tell you guys about this. This makes the most sense to tell you now.
Tell us.
In my research, I discovered that Edgar Wright and Quentin Tarantino are like buds. They're like best friends. They like hang out all the time.
Wow, that's crazy.
So delightful.
And I was like, this is amazing, because what are the odds that we just had these two back-to-back directors that I wouldn't have even affiliated with each other? And not to bore everyone, but let me just go through some of the highlights. Like, first off, when Grindhouse came out, there was the trailers that played in between. One of them was for a movie called Don't, and the trailer even has Nick Frost in it. It's directed by Edgar Wright. So Edgar Wright had a hand in Grindhouse.
Crazy.
Tarantino is featured on multiple commentaries of Edgar Wright movies.
Wow.
He's on the Hot Fuzz commentary. It's him and Edgar Wright just talking about the movie. He's also on the commentary for the TV show Spaced. So you hear the two of them talk, and it's weird because Tarantino is kind of like taking the position of the average American, which is hilarious because he's so like not an average person whatsoever. But they go see movies together. Like, they hang out. There's been times like Baby Driver. Tarantino heard that he was making a car movie, and Edgar Wright had already picked his brain about, well, how did you do this in Death Proof, and how did you film these scenes and everything? And he gave Edgar Wright a bunch of movies to watch, like these, random old 70s movies that Tarantino would be recommending. And then that he's even thanked in the credits of Baby Driver when at the end where his acknowledgments. The same thing happened in Hot Fuzz. He recommended an Italian movie called Live Like a Cop, Die Like a Man. And apparently it's just like an amazing movie. And they were both. So every time Edgar Wright has one of these ideas, Tarantino is like, here's some inspiration. Here's what I think you should check out, which I think is just insane. But it's weird to hear them talk like together, like they're just really good friends. And they were even saying that, and this, I'll wrap this up. Sorry, I'm getting so sidetracked. But so the TV show Spaced came out in 1999. But then the second season came out in 2001. There was like a 2-year gap. But the most amazing thing is that in that 2-year gap, do you guys know what monumental cinema came out between 1999 and 2001?
Go ahead and lay it on us.
It's Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. So in Spaced, Simon Pegg works at a comic book shop. He's a big nerd. And in the first season, they make a point of him like loving Star Wars. And they talk about watching the whole trilogy all together because Phantom Menace hadn't come out at the time they were filming the show. But then when it comes back in season 2, Simon Pegg, there's a scene of Simon Pegg burning all of his Star Wars things. And it's a shot-for-shot remake of like the funeral pyre where they burn Vader at the end of episode 6. So it's like, it's just immediately they're just talking trash about the prequels, which I love. But also the opening of season 2 of Spaced, they do a shot-for-shot remake of the scene of Bruce Willis finding that little machine gun in Pulp Fiction and shooting Jules or Vincent in the toilet. So yeah, anyway, so the Star Wars thing, right? Then Edgar Wright and Tarantino tell like a little anecdote about how when Phantom Menace came out, Edgar Wright said it was so bad that Tarantino didn't even go watch it.
Oh.
So Tarantino he skipped 1 and he skipped 2. So then Edgar Wright finally watched Revenge of the Sith, and he told Tarantino, you know what? It's really not that bad. Like, compared to the other two, this one's a lot better. So then, like, the next day or something, or they're at a restaurant or something like that, and Tarantino and his girlfriend come up to Edgar Wright, and they're like, okay, so we just finished watching Revenge of the Sith on your recommendation, and I got to say, man, that's the biggest piece of trash I've ever watched in my life.
I mean, you got to look at it this way. Edgar Wright and his girlfriend were with the rest of the world, and they had just been hit so hard with 1 and 2 that it made 3 seem okay.
And that's exactly what Edgar Wright said. He was like, you know what? After watching episode 1 and 2, 3 just seemed like such an improvement. But I can see what you're saying.
Oh, that's too adorable.
Like, imagine not seeing 1 and 2 and just seeing 3. It might be the worst thing you've ever seen.
Yeah,
after seeing 4.
Yeah, if 1 and 2 didn't exist, 3 would be the worst Star Wars movie. But 3's lucky because 1 and 2 are out.
That's delightful.
Ooh. Anyway, sorry. Is there anything else we want to throw about Baby Driver? I'm sorry, I really took this on a tangent.
No,
but
this
I had
is
to
great.
tell you guys about this.
That's why we're
Tarantino
here.
thing.
I actually had one last but not least, and it's just a quick one. Won't take as nearly as long as David. But shout out to James for being a babe.
Lily James?
Yeah, she's God, what's her name? Barbara?
Deborah.
Deborah.
In Baby Driver.
Yes.
Oh.
The love interest.
Mhm.
Yeah, she has a great role in that. Is she in something else? I hadn't recognized her from anything else.
I don't know if it's just her face, but I was trying to place her the whole time and I couldn't figure it out. And I haven't.
I'm looking at her filmography and I haven't seen anything else other than Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
She looks like and is dressed like the waitress in Twin Peaks in the first season of Twin Peaks.
Oh, she's from Downton Abbey.
Confirm nor deny.
Downton Abbey.
Downton Abbey.
British people playing Southerners in this movie, which is also crazy. Baby Driver is the only one filmed and takes place in the United States.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, the rest are Canada.
Ontario.
Yeah.
So, does that make our Uninformed official movie ranking for Edgar Wright number 4, Baby Driver?
Baby Driver. I can live with it. Okay, so then I guess it's back to me with my number 3. And because I've already said this, it should come as no surprise. I put Hot Fuzz. Hot Fuzz is my number 3, everybody.
And I feel okay with that because I stuck it at 4, you know? You're not going to hear any arguments from me.
I think we might have to, I feel like Danny has already been so gracious to us twice that in return, I think that we should rightfully move Scott Pilgrim down to 3.
And that's right. WRIGHT?
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
Now you got it. You got the marketing thoughts. I got to say, guys, we're at number 3. The World's End is my number 3.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We've messed this up for Danny quite bad.
Literally.
That's okay.
And you know
I
what? I'm honestly okay with conceding Scott Pilgrim because, it's my number 2. It's just one off.
How do you feel about that, old Daniel?
I am completely fine with that. As long as it's, Scott Pilgrim's fine. I think that works.
Oh, okay. Well,
So I think Scott Pilgrim number 3.
since we're going to talk about Scott Pilgrim, this is a great time to segue into Character Limit Extended.
Hey.
Here's what I have about Scott Pilgrim, y'all. It's a 2010 movie. It's written by Michael Bacall, who is a screenwriter, but also a bit actor. He's one of the bastards in Inglourious Bastards, which I thought was really interesting.
Is he Dominic DeCoco?
No, he's one of the ones who has like no lines.
Dominic DeCoco is that dude with the dumb last name, Doom. His name's like Omar Doom or something like that.
Yeah,
Dumb
last name.
He's in Grindhouse.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, so is Michael Bacall. He's also in Death Proof, and he's in the same scene. If you think back to that scene of Eli Roth, Dominic DeCoco sitting at the table with those girls, he's the other guy who's dressed like a mechanic.
Huh.
Yeah, so yeah, Edgar Wright and Tarantino, they have some intertwined webs here. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is based on a book by Brian Lee O'Malley. I want to point out that, yeah, the movie did not do well at the box office. This is an example of just Edgar Wright. Like, he has a lot of cult movies, I think unintentionally. I think Scott Pilgrim
shoots for like cult fame, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like
regular fame.
He also, I think he just wants to make the movie he wants to make. And if it's not the most profitable idea, then, you know, that's whatever. But that's just what he wants to do. He's not looking to be like, you know, the Russo brothers or something.
I think it's got to be something said about like two auteurs being friends, because I guess it rubs off a little bit on Edgar Wright, because I mean, the man has been around for like 25 years in filmmaking now and only has like 5 hard hitters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, him and Tarantino are very alike in that way too, that they're both they have a small catalog considering how long they've been at it, but there's no fat there. It's all
they
real
put their
lean.
all in each movie.
And some of these movies working on them for 20 years before they get made. Scott Pilgrim, though, so it is a comic book, and the comic book is kind of like in a manga style, although it is Canadian. It's 6 volumes, and I actually
Black and white.
It's black and white. Yeah, I just purchased the colored versions though, which come in 3 bigger size volumes. And I read the first 2. I read the first 2 back to back in like a couple hours. They're really good. I didn't get around to reading 3. Man, and some of the scenes are like shot for shot, like it's exactly the panel in the movie, and the dialogue's exactly the same, which is really crazy.
The animation's
Never
beautiful.
happens.
I mean, not the animation, but the illustration is really just so pleasing to the eye. It really makes you like want to read more.
It's really charming, yeah. And I think it's probably the second closest comic adaptation ever, except for Watchmen, because Watchmen is so close, except for the ending. But I just had a couple things about the comic that I thought, just to enlighten everyone if you haven't read it. First off, I'd say it's definitely worth a read. The first 2 volumes feel exactly like the movie. It's like beat for beat. Volumes 3 and 4, though, take a wild departure. It's a bunch of stuff that was, and I understand why it was cut out of the movie. It's way too slow. Like the comic book takes place over like the course of an entire year, whereas Scott Pilgrim the movie feels like a couple days or something, like a week. So the characters are a lot more developed. There's a lot of stuff with all the side people like Stephen Stills and Kim Pine and Young Neil and all that. There's a lot of good information.
He's just Neil now.
Oh yeah, he's just Neil. He's not Young Neil anymore. There's a couple of major differences I thought were interesting. First off, like when Matthew Patel shows up and they have that first fight, one of them says, "Uh-oh, this guy's in trouble. Scott is the best known fighter in this region." So it's like in this universe of Scott Pilgrim, they're all fighters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like Street Fighter or something. But everyone knows that Scott's like the toughest, which is weird because... I think that might be a reason why the movie didn't do so well. Like Michael Cera just doesn't look like an action star. You know what I mean?
Doesn't look like a lot of things, and all of those things are everything except for like a geeky boy.
But I feel like it wouldn't have worked with anyone else being the lead. You know what I mean?
Well, the only thing I was thinking is if they had made Scott Pilgrim like in 2017, Ansel Elgort would have been in a pretty decent Scott. I think he might have done a good job at it. But I love Michael Cera's performance. Like the way he deadpans all these lines, it's great.
The timing of the movie is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like for it to have come out in 2010, I was surprised because it carries so well, even 10 years later. It was my first exposure to all of it. And I was just like, yes, I mean, there's like a ton of video game references and it's fun and it's all, it's like one of the first movies to do that in like modern, like the last 10 years, you know what I mean? Now you have things like Ready Player One and all these things that like play off of video game nostalgia, but this does it so well and integrates it into the story so well. That's the best part about it.
When he wins that first fight and he's just like, ooh, coins.
yeah.
Something about the way that subject matter is approached, it's very clear that the person writing it actually understands what they're referencing, that it's not just like, oh, we need to make a nerdy reference here. Or like
Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, like I haven't seen Ready Player One, but from like the trailers, it just looks like, oh, here's all this visual stuff just to say like, oh, hey, there's the car from Back to the Future. It's not
They're
like
counting on you to pause it and like look at what's in the background.
Oh wow, the Iron Giant's back there. Yeah, it's just like
Godzilla. Oh,
yeah, it's a little too much. The comic book has a whole nother love interest. This character named Lisa, who's just taken out of the book entirely, which it's actually kind of cool too. Like Adult Swim did an animation called Scott Pilgrim versus the Animation. And only the first episode's on YouTube, but it is literally like scenes from the comic voiced by Michael Cera and the cast, but it's stuff that's not in the movie. So I want to see if I can find the full thing, because it seems like it's just the scenes that weren't in the movie that they like made into animation, which could make for like a really cool viewing experience, like seeing the whole thing. But also, and I just got to toss this out because I love this kind of stuff.
Toss it.
Scott Pilgrim has a Bottle Rocket reference, like the comic book. They talk about the movie Bottle Rocket, and then Jason Schwartzman's in the movie Scott Pilgrim. So I just love when stuff like that happens. It really cracks me up. I don't know why.
Also, Scott Pilgrim also has to fight both Captain America and Superman.
Oh, and
on your plate, you know what I mean? When you're just like a bassist in a punk band.
and then his super evil ex is Captain Marvel. You know what I mean?
That's right.
It's really weird how many people are in there. And then I listened to the commentary on this movie. I watched it twice leading up to this episode. But on the commentary, when Chris Evans shows up, they don't even talk about him. It's not even like he's no one. You know what I mean? It's so crazy to me that in 2010, Chris Evans was nobody. And
he was
now
just that dude from Snowpiercer and another teen movie.
No, there's that other movie too where they steal the SAT scores, The Perfect Score.
The Perfect Score.
And he was a Silver Surfer too in the original Fantastic Four, wasn't he? The
Well, he was the Human
No,
Torch.
he was the Human Torch. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was
Oh,
gonna
That
I think Snowpiercer's after Scott Pilgrim too.
is it? I thought it was 2009.
No, I think it's 2013. I'm pretty sure that
guys, it's 2020.
it's in between. It's in between some of the Captain America movies because I just
it's
watched
2013.
Snowpiercer and I looked it up and I was like, man, when was this? But he had already done Civil War, so
Y'all, we're gonna have to hit some Bong Joon-ho.
guys, Snowpiercer was like
It's amazing.
It was amazing. I
It's
watched
so
it for the first
good.
time and I was like, this movie's off the chain.
Frank, you will love that
Yes,
movie.
you'll love it, dude. I don't know how else to say it. Like, you will love that movie. It's so good. Yeah,
I
we
think it's
should
on
do that,
Netflix
guys.
too.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's where I watched it. We should do that one. Oh, you know what else is cool about Scott Pilgrim? It's like a Game of Thrones that went right. And by that, I mean, when they did the movie, volume 6 of the comic wasn't out yet. So they were in the situation where they had to come up with an ending, but there was no ending written. And instead of like talking to the author, or like, what do you think would happen, blah, 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 Edgar Wright just wrote the ending. Like he just made his own ending. So the endings are totally different, but both feel pretty good to me.
Yeah.
I've seen a synopsis of the comic ending. I haven't read it yet, though. I'm going to get to it probably tomorrow. But man,
I thought that was an
I just
interesting
thought that
part
was
of the
cool.
end. That was an interesting part of the end of the narrative in the movie where he like the ultimate goal is not just winning over Mary Elizabeth Winstead or Ramona Flowers. It's like finding discovery and caring about yourself. And that's what actually gives him the superpower to like be with someone. He's got to like know himself first. But like aside from all that too, this movie also, it captures video game references really well. And it captures, video references and movie references and stuff and other comics, but it really captures being 20 and 21, like right after high school, not knowing what to do, living with a gay roommate, or just like not knowing what you're doing. You know what I mean?
But you didn't have a gay roommate. You just had a guy that also kind of looked like Macaulay Culkin.
Rory Culkin.
Well, this one's Kieran Culkin, actually. This is the other
No,
Culkin.
that's Rory, isn't it?
No, it's Kieran. I had to look it up because Michelle and I were like, which Culkin is which? But yeah, I agree with you, man. It's such a movie, but it feels so much like this is what being in your early 20s is like. I think young Neil is 20 and Scott is 24. Like all the other characters around 23, 24. And it just feels so right. No one likes you when you're 23. That's right.
The only thing that doesn't carry over is that he is dating a 17-year-old.
Yeah, that's
I mean, like that's what his sister telling him too. He's like, dude, 17? Like, are you serious?
yeah.
Like you're a skinny white dude dating a 17-year-old Asian schoolgirl. Like, are you serious right now?
Oh yeah, and then he's like, oh, and she's Catholic too, like with the outfit and everything. She's like, what? And Anna Kendrick's really good in that role. Like that was probably the first time I saw her. She's hilarious.
The cast is amazing in that movie.
And the music is good too, man. It's like
The
something we
original
talked
music?
about with that thing
all
you
the
do.
original stuff is dope.
Yeah.
Even that band that just has that like 5-second song like that.
They capture Battle of the Bands pretty well, except there's too many people there. That's the thing.
Yeah, there needs to be like 4 people. What if Battle of the Bands were like they were in Scott Pilgrim, where it's just like, okay, 2 bands are going on at the same time, and let's see who lasts.
That is the worst idea I've ever heard. When I saw it, I was like, this would never actually work in an enclosed space.
Well, since we're talking about the music, can we take a second and talk about this bass battle, man? Because I've had gripes with that bass battle since I first saw it.
Both of them use picks.
Man.
Yeah, both of them use picks, and it's like, what's his face, Superman.
Brandon Ruth.
Yeah, his bass he plays pretty good, but then when he kicks it over to Scott, it's like, this is terrible, man. Like,
I mean,
yeah,
playing that sweet Rickenbacker that nobody at that age would ever be able to afford.
That's a $3,000 bass.
well, and then it was cool that I finally read the comic because it made sense to me finally, and it's like Scott isn't even a bass player in the comic book. When they're in a band with Envy Adams, Captain Marvel, he gets switched to drums. Or no, he is the drummer. But then they get a drummer. They get that girl with the robot arm, and they switch him to bass. And they're like, just learn bass. And I was like, man, how rude.
Oh boy.
How rude. But apparently Michael Cera is actually a bass player, and they had to get him to like dumb down his performance because he was too good. It was like, this isn't convincing. Scott Pilgrim needs to like not be that great at bass.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought
That
was
is
cool.
pretty cool.
Like, no, you're doing too good of a job. Stop.
Yeah, back off a little bit.
I do love me some Rickenbacker 3000s though.
I mean, they're gorgeous. Incredibly heavy, but gorgeous.
Worth.
I would love to get one day.
Well, David, today's your lucky day. I'm just kidding. We didn't get you.
Look under your chair. Is there anything else you guys want to toss in about Scott Pilgrim?
Too dope. Watch it. If you haven't watched it yet, you're stupid.
My first time watching it, I'm no longer stupid, but I'm also more informed for my decision in that it is a great movie and it still
I'm
carries.
gonna kick you out of the podcast now, man.
You have to be uninformed to be here.
You know, one last thing. You can't. Well, it's in turmoil right now. So for 360, there was a Scott Pilgrim video game adaptation, which was awesome, and the music was done by this band called Anamanaguchi, who just does.
I know Anamanaguchi.
They do the whole soundtrack for that video game, and it's great. And it's like a 4-player beat 'em up. You just go through the events of the movie. You're Scott, Kim, Ramona, or Steven Stills, and you just beat up. You beat up random people. It's like a beat 'em up, and then you have the boss battles, and it's really, really good. And there's like RPG elements and everything. But maybe like 5 years ago, they took it down from the store because the license expired. Because it was a licensed property. But literally, like 2 weeks ago, they put out a tweet. Ubisoft was like, we're thinking about re-releasing that Scott Pilgrim game. So it's possible that it's going to come out again soon.
Wow. That's one of the least evil thing Ubisoft has ever done.
Right? I was like, Ubisoft, you're being so generous right now. Oh, it's because you want to make money. That's what's
but you're going to have to pay for each song if you want it in the game.
Every character is $15.
You gotta pay pass and everything.
Season passes. Don't even get me started. Okay, who wants to talk about their number 2? I feel like we have the same number 2.
I don't think we do. I feel like I differ here. And if I may.
Lead.
My 2 is the True Blue Hot Fuzz.
Frank?
Well, for everything that's been moved around, that's what I have left because I'm not budging on my number 1. So I guess by default, I also have Hot Fuzz as my number 2.
And myself as well.
Hey!
Because I had Hot Fuzz as 3 originally.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was going to ask if it was your natural.
Yeah, but it got moved. It got moved up. I'm willing to move Scott Pilgrim down. Man, I saw Hot Fuzz in theaters. Like,
same.
Yeah, I saw it on like a date in high school, actually.
2007.
2007, man. Life was different back then for sure. But dude, like I wasn't ready watching that movie. I wasn't ready for what was going to come at me. There's so many things going on in Hot Fuzz. And I left just like, whoa, like I was just blown away, man. Honestly, I was, after seeing Shaun of the Dead 100 times already up until that point, it was like finally the sequel's coming out. And it blew my expectations, dude. Like Hot Fuzz could be my number 1 on some days for sure. It's a beautiful movie.
There's days where I definitely consider it my number 1. It's just such a different flavor compared to Shaun of the Dead. In that, I mean, the stakes are dialed down, the comedy is dialed way up. Like it is, I mean, the jokes are so subtle and yet so abrasive at the same time. That there's just, it's so good. Like it leaves. I mean, I will say what my one gripe about Hot Fuzz is that it can also seem to be too long. It's almost 2 hours. Well, it is 2 hours long. It's 2 hours and 1 minute long, and at the end it kind of gets a little iffy, but it's just it's easily watchable.
For me, it's kind of the middle that slows down. It's like it's somewhere in the middle towards the back half that slows down, but I think it works very well because of that huge twist that you get. You know what I mean? Because it's like it's such a huge, mind-blowing twist, and like Hot Fuzz is a fantastic parody. And David made this point where like I'm totally gonna butcher the way you said it because I don't pay that much attention when you talk, because you're just talking all the time. But it's very few times that the parody is like a good movie in the genre on its own, and it's a fantastic like mystery film. You know what I mean?
It is.
Yeah, because it's a whodunit
And a buddy cop.
and a buddy cop, and then also like a little bit of Wicker Man at the same time.
That's
Yes.
true.
It's got a little bit of everything in it, but man, it really nails it, dude. What were you say?
Oh, I was gonna say one of the jokes that pays off the most is just when 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 Nick Frost is showing Simon Pegg like all of his buddy cop movies, and he shows him Bad Boys 2, and he shows him Point Break, and he's just like, "What do you mean you've never shot your gun up in the air?" And go, "Ah," and he's like, "No, I've never shot my gun up in the air." And go, "Ah," and then near the end when he's chasing his dad down, he has to do the same thing where he's choosing to shoot him. He's ah.
Yeah, they had to like write in the perfect scenario for him to not be able to make that decision, right? And they do the Bad Boys 2 thing too. They do like when Nick. Well, this is confusing because Nick
His
Frost.
name's Danny.
His name's Danny in the movie. Yeah, when Danny, I guess, joins him again when he rides in on the cowboy when he rides in on the horse, he gives him that gun, and they start just like giving off one-liners. They do that pan thing, that 360-degree pan that they do in Bad Boys 2. It's just so good. It's so perfect.
I also, like, love the shock in Nick Frost's like voice and face when he's like, "You've never seen Bad Boys 2?"
Yeah, my favorite are some of just the really long-running jokes. Like, there's a scene early on in the movie where, well, the gore is crazy too. Like when that thing falls on his head, and then he tells the two detectives, like, "Okay, you guys need to interview everyone who was here." And he's like, "The whole town? Should I just get out the phone book and start with Aaron A. Aronson? What should we do?" And then at the end, the little boy's name is Aaron A. Aronson, and he's just like, "What?" And that's it. They don't focus on it at all, but it's so funny. It kills me.
Might I also add that town is straight out of Untitled Goose Game?
Yeah.
Which is even funnier. That little troublesome goose running around too.
That's true.
Like, from what I know about geese, that goose is causing havoc in that small.
I love when he's just like, there's swans missing from the castle, and he's just like, has the guy like describe to him what he's missing. He's just like, 2-foot neck, orange bill. Is there anything else you can say about him? Well, he's a swan. And it's just like,
Also, I love that actor / comedian. He's so good.
he's on the Daily Show.
And he does. He's on the Ricky Gervais podcast.
Oh, that's cool. I don't know. I didn't recognize that guy. Excuse me. This is also, well, I already said this, but yeah, we get the first time Bond shows up in an Edgar Wright movie, which is exciting. But the thing I wanted to bring up to you guys is I saw a little behind the scenes thing with Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg. They wrote this one together. They wrote most of the movie down, like the ideas for it, in London where they live. But their process is so bizarre. It was like they would just write ideas on giant note cards. So they'd be like, "Okay, this is a funny joke." And they would write it. And so they had this stack of like 500 note cards. And then they went out and they decided, we can't write this movie in London. So they went out into like Wales, into the countryside, into like a setting similar to Hot Fuzz, and then rented a little cottage, and they just stayed there, turned off their phones and everything, got like unplugged from the internet, and just wrote a movie. But their movie writing technique is so strange. It's like one of those giant notepads that like kindergarten teachers have, you know what I mean? And they just wrote it. No, I mean like the ones that are like on an easel, you know what I mean? Like the giant ones.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how they wrote the movie. They were like, first they just plotted out the plot points. They were like, crime 1, Nicholas Angel isn't there. Crime 2, Nicholas Angel is there. And they wrote the whole thing out like that. And then on the next page, they just wrote everything about Nicholas Angel, all the little details of his life, like in a big bubble chart graph. And they just did that over and over again. They plotted out the whole movie like that, what every person's name was in the town, what their jobs were, what Nick's theory is, and how it versus like what is actually happening, which is just hilarious. But yeah, after they did that whole thing, then they wrote the script, which is just crazy.
That's amazing. What a weird process.
Yeah, what a strange process. But I thought it was really interesting. And I was like, well, I guess that's how you write a movie together. Like you get two people down and you just sit there and you spitball stuff and you write it up on a board and then you just try and like rearrange it and make it make sense.
Delightful. What a delightful film experience.
Can we just like acknowledge that the fact that the cult like crew that took over the town was called the NWA, the Neighborhood Watch Alliance?
Yeah, that is really funny, and I'm sure it has to be intentional.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
My favorite joke, and it's oh god, it's so dumb. It makes me laugh so hard every time I watch this stupid movie. Is when they're like, when they're at like the council meeting and they're talking about the human statue.
Oh, this nuisance.
If we don't deal with these clowns, we'll be up to our balls and jugglers.
Yeah.
And later in the catacombs, they like find the human statue. Just like
Yeah, that is great. That's hilarious stuff.
there's like a whole troop of like middle schoolers down there too. Like
Yeah, it's all the people they kicked out of the bar. It was like everyone in the movie that was referenced, they were all there. It's great attention to detail. That's really one thing about all these movies is that they're so specific and man, I can't think of what the word is other than detailed, but it's just very clear.
meticulous.
Meticulous. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. They take a lot of care in it, which is cool.
I'll take words that describe detail for $500, Alex.
What is... See, I can't even come up with another one. I would fail that category. Well, and after last podcast, I was like, who knows what's going to happen when we go in here? Is Frank going to try and say, World's End is number one? What's going to happen here after last podcast?
No, there's an obvious number one in this group. In this troop of fantastic movies, there's a standout above all others.
Yeah. And it's Shaun of the Dead, y'all.
Shaun of the Dead. Woo! Let out the streamers.
Yeah.
Right? This is what Edgar Wright refers to as his second film debut. He even calls it that. Because it was the first one that was just totally, a full idea released by a major, like a major publishing house. And this is actually inspired by that TV show Space 2. In the third episode, Simon Pegg is playing so much Resident Evil 2 that he's having dreams of Resident Evil 2. And there's like a whole scene of him like shooting zombies. And that's when those guys had the idea, we should do a zombie movie. And that
Been there, done that, especially with the remake.
Yeah, right?
This movie has an extreme nostalgia factor. Like this movie is... Frank and I met each other like right around this year. Actually, 2004 we met each other.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and then we went to see this movie. And it just kind of like dictated our friendship. It was like we watched it all the time. And we just became so familiar with it. And it's like a part of us knowing each other. And this, I mean, there's just so many jokes in this movie that can just be... It's weird how timely this movie was.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And I think they talk about it a lot where they knew that the remake of Dawn of the Dead was coming up. And he contacted the filmmakers, I believe, to like make sure, like, hey, I want to make sure I'm not stepping on your toes right now, or that we don't have a lot of the same content coming up.
So we actually learned something really funny about that because we watched it with like the additional commentary. Like we didn't put the subtitles on, but they have like a fun fact subtitle thing that just plays through the whole movie. And they actually there's one thing that's like an accidental like nod to the remake. And they did it totally unintentionally. Like they hadn't seen anything yet. And it was like, it was the type of, like it was a snack or a drink that he had like when they were at the Winchester.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. And it ended up being the same kind. What was this, right?
I can't think of what it was. It's going to bug me.
I can't remember it either. I'll have to go back and check that out again. But yeah, it was one of those weird things, kind of like 28 Days Later and Walking Dead having the same premise at the beginning, but totally unintentionally. Edgar Wright just seems like such a nice guy. Like he's just calling all these people, hey, I'm doing this project. What do you think? It's like,
and he was an 01 at the time too. As far as America goes.
This guy, I mean, he must have been like barely 20, I think, when he directed this movie, and people weren't even like people were hesitant to let him direct a movie because they just thought he was too young. And he even has a little anecdote about how one day on set, someone must have like not thought he was the director. Like one of the extras must have thought he was like a personal assistant or something. And they leaned over to him and they were like, this one's straight to DVD, right?
And it's funny. In America, it was slated for straight to DVD release. But this is one of the first movies that was generated by internet buzz to become a cult classic and became theatrically released into the American market.
That's cool.
Imagine what would have happened if it... I mean, I'm sure it still would have gotten big, but I mean, not to the extent that it was.
It would have been that slow burn,
Well, it would have been a big British thing for sure, but I don't know about in the old States. across the lake. I don't know how that would have went down.
Across the pond.
Across the pond. Oh no, I got my British isms.
They should use.
Wait, what were you saying, Frank?
I said lakes are much bigger than ponds. They should just use lake.
Oh yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
What it is. Vast ocean.
Speaking of nostalgia, and man, I to be honest, it's been so long, I can't remember for sure. But this is one of the first like 3 movies in the movie collection. Like I remember the day that I bought some movies to start a DVD collection, and I bought 3 movies, and it was Shaun of the Dead, Next of Kin, which is a crazy movie. And I can't remember what the third one was. It was probably bad, actually. It was probably a bad movie. But dude, this Shaun of the Dead copy I have is just so old. It's so near and dear to my heart. I've seen it so many times. But this last time we were watching it through, I realized that all the characters are 29 in this movie. We are the same age as the characters in Shaun of the Dead.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that crisis you're having now that happened to us this weekend when David dropped that bomb on us.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Simon Pegg is like 55 now.
Yeah. Whew.
He can qualify in the AARP.
Oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
Don't say that. But yeah, and again, it's like Edgar Wright. Well, Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg, really. I think they kind of like nailed the time. You know what I mean? It's like everyone's starting their professional careers, and a couple of them are like that. That theme is very similar in all these movies. It's about that one person who's not like moving forward in the right way. But just such relatable characters. And I mean, we could really go into all the different horror movie references. There's so many in Shaun of the Dead, like just zombie references. But the thing I thought was most interesting is after Edgar Wright made this movie, he hasn't watched any new zombie movie since. And he said basically like whatever he had in his system, he like got it out, and he's kind of just done with the genre for now. He doesn't need to watch anyone else, because Zombieland came out, several years later, and then that was the big comparison. It was like, what's the better zombie comedy? Is it Shaun of the Dead or Zombieland? And I guess, knuckle draggers would say Zombieland, obviously.
Right. Shaun of the Dead. I mean,
Yeah.
Like Zombieland is good. Shaun of the Dead is fantastic. They're like, I can't think of anything wrong with the movie.
And then another problem is that Zombieland tried to go for the gold again and did not succeed. The sequel is terrible.
I still haven't seen Zombieland 2.
I'm gonna wait a few years for a sequel.
Yeah, you don't. You shouldn't. You know what I mean?
How many good comedy sequels are there really, though? Like, how many of them got it right?
It happened again with Super Troopers. That took 12 years, I think, or something. No, even longer. I mean, the original one came out in 2001, and then the sequel came out in like 2017.
Yeah, it took a long time, man. I mean, Ghostbusters 2 might be the best one, but even then, a lot of people talk trash about Ghostbusters 2.
That's because Ghostbusters 2 is fantastic as well.
It is amazing.
I like Ghostbusters 2. I mean, the ending's a little too cheesy for me, but I'll get over it.
You hate it when
Power of love. Ugh.
That's the power of love.
I just mute that part of Back to the Future, the power of love part. Man, is there anything else we want to say about Shaun of the Dead? I feel like this is just the expected one, right? It has to be number one.
What else can be said? It's one of the best.
Value. Yeah, I'll watch it again.
It's something you could pop in at a bar and not even have the volume on, and people will still be watching as they sip their beers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and to that effect, I'll even say like it could be on in the back. You could look at any random 5 minutes, and you'll have a good time.
Oh, yeah.
There's no part of that movie that's a lull.
Well, if we're wrapping up this Edgar Wright conversation, there's one more little tidbit I wanted to share with you guys, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with this, but Edgar Wright would have had a 6th motion picture release, and that is Ant-Man.
Mm-hmm.
That he was originally signed on to do that, but I did a little bit of digging, and it turns out that story is like a little bit more than I thought. Because originally I was like, oh, they got Edgar Wright to do Ant-Man, and then he disagreed, and then he left, and that was it. But Edgar Wright pitched the Ant-Man movie in 2003.
Wow.
Describing it as an action-adventure comedy, a cross-genre action and special effects bonanza. He was developing the movie, shooting test reels, hiring casts, and even getting really close to filming the movie before eventually he parted. So when he was originally in talks with this thing, he was in talks with Marvel, But then Marvel was bought out by Disney. And then Disney wanted, obviously, Ant-Man to be part of their cinematic universe. But Edgar Wright was like, I don't want anything to do with that. I just want to make a Ant-Man movie that is unrelated to everything else. It needs to be a standalone movie. And it's actually the reason why the Ant-Man and Wasp aren't in the first Avengers movie. They were supposed to be. But Edgar Wright said, hey, I don't want any of these characters that I'm working on showing up in any other iterations before Ant-Man comes out. So Disney had already kind of changed their plans with how they were going to introduce the characters, but ultimately they were just like, "No, we can't do this." So they separated ways. A lot of Edgar Wright's script is still in the movie because he wrote the screenplay for it. But this is what I thought was funny. People have been asking him for years now. Well, what did you think of Ant-Man after you guys parted ways or whatever? And he's like, he's never seen it. And then he said it would be kind of like asking me, do you want to watch your ex-girlfriend have sex?
I guess it depends on the type of person you are.
Yeah. Well, but again, Edgar Wright's a nice guy. He's a British gentleman. That's what we've learned today.
I've told you guys already that Ant-Man is slightly above Captain Marvel in my book of the MCU.
You're crazy, man. You might be thinking Ant-Man and Wasp.
Yeah, well,
this is what we came to last time. Way better
it's above Thor: The Dark World and the first Captain America. And
I don't know if I've seen Ant-Man.
It's the heist one.
Yeah,
because that's like all funny. The MCU movies.
Yeah,
I've seen that scene of him like getting smaller and smaller, like on a molecular level, but I think that's about it.
Yeah, and that's the first Ant-Man. Although it happens again in the second Ant-Man. And then it's essentially what happens in Avengers Endgame. That's like how it all ties in.
He goes inside of Thanos' butt and expands from the molecular level, and that's what ends. Oops, spoiler alert.
And I was not paying attention during that movie.
Yeah, he fell asleep. There's a lot of CGI. It's hard to stay awake.
No, MCU puts me right to sleep.
Man, the third act of an MCU movie, trying to watch a midnight release, bam, you're out for the count.
Unless it's the Avengers. I feel like the Avengers movies are the only ones that can keep it going through the entire thing. But, go ahead.
I was going to say, even Avengers 2 is like a little slow for me. I'd rather watch Ant-Man over Age of Ultron. Avengers 1 is good, though. I could watch that movie for sure.
I also have a fun little tidbit, if I may, gentlemen. There is technically a sixth in the works from Edgar Wright.
Ooh.
That was supposed to release this September.
Oh, what happened?
Alas, the world is in a crisis.
Interesting. I think I saw this.
It is called, what is it? Last Night in Soho. It's supposed to be a psychological horror film from Edgar Wright. This is one that he's written and directed coming up, which I'm thoroughly interested about.
Yeah, and it stars
them to pull out that Nick Frost Simon Pegg series where they're ghost hunters on Amazon, man.
Oh yeah.
Whoa, what's that?
I saw that article, but it's not on IMDb, which I thought was interesting. There was an article about maybe it was a year ago now, I don't know, about them doing a TV series with the regular crew, but that Simon Pegg and Nick Frost were going to be ghost hunters, which just sounds awesome. It
does sound awesome.
Sounds perfect.
I'm really hoping it's a spoof and not a real ghost hunting show.
Oh, that'd be bad.
Because those are a waste of time.
I'd take either, to be honest. But that movie you're talking about, it stars Anya Taylor-Joy, who is the protagonist in The Witch.
That's
and
right.
She's also the girl from Glass and Split.
It has Matt Smith.
Yeah, it's got Matt Smith. It's got the Doctor.
The Doctor Who.
And I think her name's Mackenzie Davis.
Oh, from Cease and Halt Fire? Or Cease and Catch Fire?
She's also in Jojo Rabbit. She's
Halt and Catch Fire.
Yeah, there we go. She's the girl in Jojo Rabbit as well.
Oh, Thomas and Mackenzie, not Mackenzie Davis.
Oh, sorry. Wrong Mackenzie. Thomas and Mackenzie. There we go.
But
Which
yes.
is weird. Because isn't the girl in The Witch, isn't her name Thomason? Isn't that the name of the character?
She is, yeah.
That's a weird little...
Man, we're going to have to do a Robert Akers mini movie quest here. coming up here.
Just the Robert Eggers movie ranking.
Yeah, of The Lighthouse and The Witch.
Well, I still like The Witch the best. Join us next time.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-bo. Ew.
We'll have to wait till he comes out with a third one, and then I think it would be justified.
Lighthouse is great, everyone. You should watch that. Anyways, let's talk about...
No time to react. Keep moving.
Yeah, Last Night in Soho. It also has a teaser poster already ready to go. I don't know if there's a trailer. Personally, I haven't seen it. But it is slated to be re-released, or to actually be released April 23rd, 2021. Hopefully when the world's a lot less germ-filled and you all can take wearing a mask more seriously.
Dang. Calling him out. All right, so I guess it's time for our next segment. Oh.
Sorry, I'm
Frank.
just reacting to these stills I'm seeing for Last Night in Soho.
Oh, I haven't seen the stills yet. Does it look good?
Oh, so there must be a trailer.
Yeah, it looks good, man.
It sounds like a serious Edgar Wright film.
I feel like it's still got to be a little tongue-in-cheek. I don't see him going full serious.
The man can span many genres, I will say. He's got action down and comedy down perfectly.
And he does it all in editing, which is cool too. Like, obviously there's so many more factors, but it's like his editing that's really crazy. Like,
My God, just that super hard cut montage of him doing all the paperwork and Hot Fuzz. Super dramatic, but he's just like filling out files and making sure everything goes in the right spot and getting everybody's headshots and fingerprints.
and I think they were saying that too, because weren't they saying something about like cops complain that they never showed the paperwork aspect in a cop movie? It's like Edgar Wright was like, okay, let's do an action sequence of this really monotonous stuff. This is really good.
And he's got like that hard driving music that sounds like an anti-piracy ad from the early 2000s.
That's what those look like. They do look like anti-piracy ads with the blur and everything. That's great.
Mhm.
Well, I guess it's time for our next segment. Oh, that's interesting. Whoa, even over the lag, Frank, we nailed that timing.
You guys were
together.
real close.
Yeah, that's exciting. And Frank, what do we have today?
Oh, was I supposed to do something? I'm just kidding. I came prepared. So I'm trying to keep the Oh That's Interesting related to movies, which made it a little bit hard this week because the whole world is shut down and nothing's being released right now.
Yeah, not a lot of movie news.
Alas, I found something that might pique our interest, and I almost like gave it away earlier because Danny mentioned the film franchise earlier. But Jurassic World 3 is looking to start filming in July, according to Sam Neill. And this I'm pulling from ScreenRant.com. So Jurassic World 3 is looking to start filming in July, which is they said the last movie, Dominion, was supposed to be like the last movie in the trilogy, but Sam Neill's saying this is more of like a start, and that this is the thing I found kind of interesting is that they don't see an end to Jurassic Park / World movies anytime soon. They're gonna keep making them, which isn't the best news. Guys, Jurassic Park's gonna turn into Fast and the Furious, is what I'm telling you.
There's Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny that you say that. Have you guys seen Fallen Kingdom? Both of you?
No.
Now, which is that the one with the bubble?
No, that's like the last recent Jurassic World one.
Yeah, but I
That's
think
the
there is a bubble in the trailer though, isn't there? Like,
a bubble machine.
Oh, yeah, that's like the first 5 minutes of the movie. Yeah,
so funny.
it's dumb. But anyways, I mean, it is the worst Jurassic Park movie. It takes Jurassic Park 3 up on a pedestal.
Ooh,
like-
I really don't enjoy Jurassic Park 3.
It's real bad, y'all. And let's just say, I mean, they put dinosaurs in a haunted mansion setting, and then they talk about clones, and then it gets all sorts of stupid up in there. But it's a beautifully shot film. It's just really bad. I would say the one saving grace that I've heard of this recent Jurassic World. Trust me, I was super hyped for Fallen Kingdom. I went to go see it, and it was real bad. And I've seen it many times trying to change my own mind, and I could not find anything good about it.
You just keep having unpleasant experiences.
Yeah, it's just so painful. every time I do it.
Like,
And
buy olives, I'm like, oh no, that's still great.
but all the health benefits. But what I would say is the one saving grace is that they do have the entire original cast apparently signed on for this. They have Sam Neill, they have Jeff Goldblum, they have Laura Dern, apparently, for this next one.
Yeah, that's what I was seeing on the Screen Rant article. But who knows? Like, it all depends on like who's driving the ship. You know what I mean?
Is it Colin Trevorrow that's going to be screenplaying and directing?
Oh, let's see.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up too. I don't even think it's been a cast issue. It's two problems. First, it's like the Star Wars problem in that they just can't write a different plot. It's like, man, there's so many ideas that you could have about bringing dinosaurs back to life, and you guys got to do the same thing every movie. I mean, obviously there are some differences in where the movie goes after the premise, but it's always the same idea. And it's like, just stop going to the dinosaur island, everyone.
It is Colin Trevorrow.
It is, yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's the bad thing about Jurassic Park. It's like, this is a horrible idea, but we keep doing it.
And it's the same guy that paired up. There's a pair. It's Derek Connolly and Colin Trevorrow. And Colin Trevorrow did Safety Not Guaranteed, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, as well as this guy. So I don't know how well I feel about it being in their hands, to be honest.
There's actually a third writer attached, and she worked on Jurassic World Dominion and another wet fart, Pacific Rim Uprising.
Oh my god! Oh, that's the worst movie.
Not going to be good. There's no way this movie is going to be good.
Yeah, dude,
I can only say since you guys haven't seen Fallen Kingdom, I would say you should watch it just to know what happens. You know what I mean? Just to know where we're looking at. But it's definitely, like, as a light spoiler, it's going in the direction of what Planet of the Apes did well. The remakes of the Planet of the Apes. So the Planet of the Apes...
Also, they got Mark Wahlberg.
Rise. No, Michael Clark Duncan is back. And he is the Fallen Kingdom. But I would say, Planet of the Apes, I don't know if you guys have seen any of the new Planet of the Apes, but they're good. And they take it into a post-apocalyptic kind of thing. They're really aiming towards the part of the first film, getting up to that point. But that's essentially what they're trying to set up. There's a short film online on YouTube called Battle for Little Big Rock, I believe. That's a Jurassic World 2.5. It's essentially after Fallen Kingdom. What happens as dinosaurs are in the wild in America? And you should watch it.
Maybe I'll have to check that out. See, that sounds interesting. That sounds like a way more interesting movie.
Yeah, what they need to do is dump some tiny little dinosaurs into Florida because everything thrives in Florida. Wait 5 years and I'll watch that movie because the Floridians won't even care. And they'll just start hunting these dinosaurs to extinction.
Well, eat them. Yeah. Well, I would give you guys a homework assignment of watching Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I know it's going to be hard.
Man, I don't know if quarantine's gotten that bad yet.
Is it going to be one of those homework assignments that just never gets done? And be like, oh, no, we're supposed to. Oh, you know what? I think I left it in my other backpack.
Oh, sorry. I just didn't understand the instructions.
Yeah, or just watch like an internet sins counter of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. You'll be caught up.
That sounds easier. I'll read a synopsis on IMDb.
Jurassic Park has tipped in that most of its movies are bad now.
Yeah.
Like, it was on a scale for a while where it was like, okay, 1 and 2 are outweighing 3, and then Jurassic World came out, and it was kind of like Force Awakens, where it was like, well, it wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? It was really retreading, but it wasn't that bad.
It was a movie.
And then now it's like, it's getting so out of whack.
And I feel bad because J.A. Bayona made it. He was the director on it, and he's a great director. And I just don't know what happened. The direction's great. The story is terrible.
Well, it's also like what little Edgar Wright went through here. It's that these are just studio machines. They're like, let's just keep pumping money until it's not profitable anymore. And then what's going to happen? You're going to end up with a bunch of uncohesive, messy movies that no one's going to like and ever want to watch again. So
just create IP for the sake of IP.
Because, like, for instance, what is the point of even watching Jurassic World? Why not just watch Jurassic Park? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is there anything you get out of Jurassic World that's different, really? You don't get to see Chris Pratt's hunking guns, but you can just watch another movie for that.
True.
So,
Just go on his Instagram. Like, if you want something different, then just watch Lost World because it's fantastic and it's a totally different vibe.
I'm so glad you guys are on the same page as me. The Lost World is an amazing part 2. It is the Empire Strikes Back of dinosaurs.
Dude, I think I like the Lost World is my favorite Jurassic Park movie, and then the first one a close second.
It's so dark. It's
well, look
so
at that. We knocked out 2 movie rankings in one episode. Everybody, congrats.
Yeah. My number 1 is number 2. My number 2 is number 1, and everything else can eat a fart.
Yeah.
Well, Jurassic Park 3 is not that bad now.
Yeah, but the first time I watched Jurassic Park 3, I was like, oh God, what have we done?
Imagine like some guy who was complaining about Return of the Jedi in the 80s. Like, stupid Ewoks, I hate them. Oh, Han didn't even do anything in this movie. I hate this movie. And then like that person watching Phantom Menace like 20 years later, just being livid. What is this?
Watching like the Gungan King going,
No, you sir, Jar Jar Binks. You sir banned.
Wow.
Terrible.
Yeah, I mean I'm looking at the Wikipedia, which is the official source of Jurassic World Dominion, and it does have a stellar cast, including the original cast and BD Wong. So this is crazy. I mean, I really hope it can redeem itself, but
It's not going to.
I know it's not going to.
And they could have like Ian McKellen and Daniel Day-Lewis in that movie, and it would just basically be like, this is what happens when 20 people sit down in a room and write a movie, and they have no intention of making a movie. They just want to make as much money as they can. It's going to be garbage. It's going to be garbaggio.
are the toys even cool anymore? I haven't even seen the new like Jurassic Park toys because they used to be lit. Like the T-Rex with a chunk pops out of the side of the body when it gets attacked.
The brown one.
Toy.
Well, then you also had the Lost World toys, where I still have that T-Rex, where you swallow the Alan Grant and the Jeep, and it actually has a dissectable stomach where it comes out. It's real cool.
They make a Lost World set too, where it's that whole like trailer setup. Yeah, dude.
I've like perused the Walmart toy section.
Yeah, that sounds better than you looking for toys at Walmart for sure.
I will say that they have they have dinosaurs that aren't in the films. That's why I don't understand. It's like they have some that they didn't even put in the films, but then they also have like some cool wearable stuff. And I mean, it's all marketing. It's all it is.
Here we are at the end of the show, everyone, and it's time for Peeps Les Predicts, in which we take 2 real or fictional people and put them in a hypothetical situation in which we as a channel debate. Of course, if you have any suggestions for our Peeps and Predicts jars, you can send them to davidandfrankandbeans at gmail.com, or, the comments, or, call us on the phone or something. So
Trust me, we read the comments.
So today we have for our first matchup. Well, yeah, first matchup is the best way to say it. Today we are talking about Michael the Bag Boy from Hot Fuzz versus the Hound from Game of Thrones. Well, Danny, what were you saying about this? This is your fun fact.
Both played by Rory McCann, the 6'6" person in Game of Thrones known as the Hound.
This is mind-blowing to me, man. I would have never guessed this was the same guy. I don't see it in the face at all.
It's so funny. As soon as I watched Game of Thrones the first time, you showed me it, and I saw the Hound. I was like, that's the Yarp guy. Hot Fuzz.
That is so funny.
I would have never guessed, dude.
Maybe it's
His
the facial
teeth are
scarring.
so distinguishable. Like, it's like you see his teeth, they're massive, and they're not even props in Hot Fuzz. Like, you're just like, wow, that guy has big teeth, and they occur again.
It's like Will Ferrell's teeth. I feel like Will Ferrell's got some distinctly messed up teeth, man.
His bottom row.
Gonna make the exact same comparison.
Okay, this might be, and I'm going to hype this up a little bit, this might be the hardest argument we've ever had. Who could prove Epstein didn't kill himself?
These are both mine. This is great.
This is crazy because And I just want to open this up. This is my reasoning and why I think this is going to be tough. Michael the Bag Boy, first off, can only say yarp or narp. So that's problem number one. But then the Hound just doesn't care.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He wouldn't care at all. He'd be like, that's not my problem. Like, that's the kingdom's problem. I don't care.
He would sell him out right away.
Well, I don't even know if he would sell him out. He'd be like, I'm not saying.
Like, if that's who you hire to suicide Epstein, you know what I mean?
Oh, that's a good point. He would be the one doing the job.
Mm-hmm.
But Michael the Bag Boy couldn't lie. Well, maybe he can.
Yeah,
It just depends how the questions are phrased to him.
Truthful.
I don't know if he lies in Hot Fuzz,
I don't know if he has the mental capacity to lie.
but it is clear that he was lured in by Nicholas Angel through like childlike things. Like, for instance, he distracts him with the stuffed monkey before he hits him with the potted plant and says, "Playtime is over."
However, he is in on a diabolical plan. I don't know if that's on his own volition.
Well, it does seem like he's into it, because when they get into that fight in the supermarket, he's like, "Is this what you want to do?" And he's like, "Yes." But then arguably, if his brain, like if he's not fully functioning, which is suggested in the movie that he's like a childlike brain or something like that, then he could be easily manipulated by someone like James Bond. You know what I mean?
Oh, easily.
So I could see that happening. But yeah, I feel like, okay, so let's say we're in the situation that Michael the Bag Boy and the Hound are both there to witness Epstein getting suicided. then the question is, who are the cops going to get that information out of? And to me, it only makes sense for it to be Michael the Bag Boy.
I mean, he can only give a positive or negative response.
Yeah, but as long as you form all your questions in a yes or no question format, you will eventually like figure out what this guy knows. Whereas the Hound would be like, "Am I under arrest? No? Then get me out of here."
But this gets into an interesting point, because the wording of this question is, who could prove Epstein didn't kill himself? So this isn't just that they were witnesses. This is like they're the investigator.
Well, I think then by default it has to go to the Hound because he's the only one with any lingual skills.
Yeah.
I feel like the Hound would strong arm his way to that conclusion too.
Well, I would also say if you put the Hound in charge of a mission, he will get that mission done. We know that about the Hound.
True.
It's in his character.
Okay. I'm fine with that. We'll go with the Hound.
However, I will argue that he did not protect Joffrey until he died, which he did
That's
swear.
true. He does have a little bit of self-interest.
Joffrey sucked real hard, you know?
But what interest does he have to protect Jeffrey Epstein? Unless
Joffrey Epstein.
Unless Epstein knows something about the Hound.
But what if the Hound knew who killed Epstein, and by presenting that Epstein wasn't a true suicide, he gets someone? Well, I don't think he would care enough.
I don't think he would care enough. He's not invested in that.
Unless it was Arya who killed Jeffrey Epstein.
Ooh, man, that would be so sweet.
He wouldn't rat on Arya. I feel
Rewrite season 8. Rewrite season 8.
That's how season 8 ends. She sails off. It turns out she ends up in the United States.
Oh. Take note, D&D.
Okay, so what are we doing here?
I think we got to go with the Hound just by default.
The Hound? Okay, I'm comfortable with it because we still have another round anyways. So round 2, who could escape the cops in a car chase?
Well, the Hound doesn't know how to ride. Doesn't know how to drive a car.
No.
Fair.
Cars don't exist in Westeros.
Horses are much slower than cars.
But he could pick up on it. Who are we? Oh, with Michael the Bag Boy?
Yeah, Michael the Bag Boy.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think Michael can drive.
Is there any... Well, there isn't a time where they show him driving, huh?
No.
But he had to get around town somehow. It couldn't
It's a small town.
Extraordinarily long stride.
He probably lives in the grocery store, let's be honest.
Man, I wish we could just call Edgar Wright. Hey man, I have some clarification questions. Could Michael the Bag Boy drive? And if so, how good was he?
I know he's no baby driver, but I mean, how good?
I'm going to say that Michael, we know that he can function on an adult level. Like he seems to be able to take care of himself. And arguably, even if he is inexperienced, he'd probably have a better time than someone who has no concept of what a car is. Like if you were just to pluck someone from Game of Thrones and put him in 2017 British countryside, I think it would be too much to just.
On top of that, I will add, David, if you put that person in a car, like 15 miles an hour is going to feel fast to them. You know what I mean? They're not going to go fast enough to outrun the cops.
No.
Think about like a new student driver and how freaking slow they go on the freeway.
And I bet the hound would just be like, let's get out of the car and just kill the cops.
Yeah, why don't we just kill them? Like, it seems much easier.
He wouldn't know how to like pull an e-brake or fishtail or do anything at all. Wouldn't have those skills right away.
Where I think you could train Michael the Bag Boy to do all those things.
Yeah. He could break into someone's apartment and wear a hood and commit murder. You know what I mean? I think it's arguable that you could learn how to drive a car. It's not that hard.
That is a good point.
They taught him how to
part of the murders.
They taught him how what?
They taught him how to work the walkie-talkie.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yarp. So I guess are we comfortable giving this one to Michael the Bag Boy?
Yarp.
Yarp. Okay, for the last one, the tiebreaker round. Before we move on to our reigning champ, who could complete the Golden Mile? And I mean, this is hands down the Hound.
Obviously.
Oh, easily.
Hands down the Hound.
Why do we even need to debate?
No, we don't.
We don't know how good of a drinker Michael the Bag Boy is, but he is not nearly as seasoned as the Hound is.
Or
The
his
Hound-
and deliver.
The Hound would do the whole thing and then call everyone a certain word that I think you both know which word I'm talking about.
And then he would ask for a chicken.
Good word.
Yeah, for reals.
It's
Okay,
a word
well-
we as Americans don't use often enough.
No. We stray away from that one as opposed to
Across the lake,
our friends across the lake. They love it.
as they should.
And down under. They love it.
Down under.
That's true too. Okay, so we have the Hound versus our reigning champs, the Scooby-Doo gang. Am I right there? Okay.
Yeah, you're right. They dethroned Rick Sanchez last time.
How bizarre.
One is very G-rated and one is very not G-rated.
And
Straight up G.
from last episode, we wrote a bunch of specific Tarantino stuff. And for this one, we got one of the Tarantino predicaments.
Thick.
Who's more likely to yell the N-word?
Oh,
I feel like it's the Hound.
the
Well-
Hound easily. I mean,
But
We must
the only
created.
the 60s? But here's my reason right here. Here's all I'm saying. The Hound would already yell the N-word, but George R. R. Martin was like, I'm not putting black people in Game of Thrones.
there are black people in Game of Thrones.
That's true. There's like two, and they're all slaves. You know what I mean?
No,
But-
there's one that's a pirate. Salvador San's a pirate. Or they're from the Summer Isles.
I guess that's true. Who are the black people in Game of Thrones? There's the one who marries Khaleesi.
Yeah, he's from the Summer Isles.
So he's a
And-
slaver.
He's Zoan Zandoxis or whatever his name is.
Yeah. And then there's her right hand. Or not her right hand, but her handmaiden or whatever.
Also from the Summer Isles, Missandei.
Also a slave.
Also a slave. So he's fine with black people in there.
I think that's it. I mean, it's more than Lord of the Rings. You got to give him credit for that.
There's at least 3 black people. But a lot of the black people are in Essos, to be honest, in Game of Thrones, in the Song of Ice and Fire world. I would
Why when
say
you drive into Essos, you click the lock on your car just to make sure.
you lock your boat.
Are there any black characters in Scooby-Doo? Now that I think about it, I don't remember.
Not
I mean, maybe the bad guys.
They have that crossover with the Globetrotters, but that's it.
Dang, that's a good point. That is a great point, actually.
I will say, I would think that either Daphne or Fred would let a cool little N-word just slip if their things came out of a knot. Like if they got in a sticky situation in which their cool could not stay cool, I think they would let one slip.
I'm gonna present this argument having no historical context whatsoever, so take this with a grain of salt. But I feel like in the 60s, if you were saying the N-word, it was with racial intent for sure. Whereas now in 2020, someone who's not black might say the N-word without trying to be racist, Maybe they're just like really into hip hop or something. I don't know. You know what I mean?
And to
Maybe
that
they're-
point, if Shaggy was in present day, I feel like he'd be one of those guys.
Yeah, Shaggy would for sure.
He would be a guy or a UH guy. You know what I'm saying?
He'd be a UH for sure. But I'm just thinking, in that time period, I don't think Freddie or Daphne, even if they had some underlying prejudice, I don't see them acting on it. Like, just giving that the 60s is that tumultuous time. Of course, that is never shown in Scooby-Doo. They never have a civil rights episode. But I'm just going to say, the Harlem Globetrotters, to me, outweighs Game of Thrones. Like, just as far as like ethnic presence, there's more black people in that one episode of Scooby-Doo than all of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, you need 5 guys just to put a team on the court. You know what I'm saying?
And the Harlem Globetrotters are at least there's like 10 of them. They're a wacky group. I don't know how many there are.
I saw them once as a kid. I don't remember how deep the bench was.
I saw them also. And I would say my argument to that.
Probably there to get, like at the
We probably were at the Don Haskins. Yeah.
That's so funny.
My argument to that would be that as a representation, I would say that I don't speak for this, but like I would say that the Harlem Globetrotters probably function as the same as like going to a Mexican restaurant. It's like a very G-rated representation of somebody.
Well, that's the other thing too. Scooby-Doo is G-rated, so
It's true.
just there's gonna be no N-words no matter what because
It all happened off camera for sure. And I was hoping I could find out like where the Scooby-Doo gang was from, and I was kind of hoping they were from the South to help in my argument. But they're from a coastal town called Crystal Cove, so that doesn't give us much.
Ooh, I didn't know
Probably
that.
New England.
I was thinking like the Northeast too.
They're from.
I'm just
Lovecraft
saying that Freddie seems very trust fundy. He seems like he's gone to an Ivy League school.
If Freddie doesn't
Oh, no.
say the N-word, his dad for sure does.
That's true. But we're not talking about the Scooby-Doo gang's parents. We're talking about the Scooby-Doo gang.
I'm sure that when Freddie and Daphne ran away from home, the parents were probably worried that they were hanging around with these individuals.
But even then, they would.
This is between the Scooby-Doo gang and the Hound, right?
Yeah.
As much as I don't want to put it on the Hound, like he would totally say the N-word if he thought like
Yeah.
get a rise out of somebody and get them to attack.
For sure. That's what I'm saying. In Game of Thrones, it makes sense. There would be
Yeah.
a bunch of N-words in Game of Thrones if there were more black people, but there aren't.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Sounds like vile. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he would say anything. The Scooby-Doo gang
agree.
at worst, would like lock their doors on the Mystery Machine.
I really wanted to pin this on I really wanted to pin this on the Scooby-Doo gang.
But
So funny to me.
I'm not going to say it. Let's just skip ahead and say that.
Okay, wait. So in this though, we're saying that the Hound wins, right? Let me read this real quick.
Oh wait, yeah. Well, how's the question worded?
Yeah. Who could? Oh my gosh! I've just been sitting here fiddling with papers in my hands. Oh, I stuck it on my glass. Who's more likely?
Yeah.
So this means the Hound wins, and Scooby-Doo would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for George R. R. Martin and that pesky dog.
That's nice. If you got to use that joke. I'm really happy for you.
We had 2 appearances by Scooby-Doo, and I got it both times, so I'm glad with it. We got everything we could out of that. Well, I feel like I'm not going to top that, so please subscribe and share if you guys enjoyed the podcast.
Does that mean that the Hound is now our winner? He's
Yeah.
our champion?
The Hound is the new reigning champ, and
Trial by combat. Long may he reign.
Long may he reign. So if we get into a situation where the Hound is defeated, we should invoke trial by combat, which would involve I don't know what, but we should be able to invoke it.
I'll just go over there and fight you, David.
Oh, I'm down.
There you go.
I'm super down. I have swords.
Just one round in
You
Rocket
don't even have
League.
to pause. You live 5 minutes away. We can keep recording. You and Danny can vamp. I'll drive over. We'll fight to the death.
I'll put you in your place. That sounds like a good plan.
See about that, David. About that.
Please don't forget to comment. Give us your peeps and predicts, if you will. Hit that subscribe button just as hard as the Hound would hit anyone, really, that questioned his chickening or his ailing. And please check out David and Frankenbeans. We've got Uninformed movie reviews. We've got Character Limit Exceeded. And we've got Apollo City Comics.
Yeah, check out all that good work Brandon's doing over there. I don't like listening to him all the time, but you might.
Someone has to.
Somebody's
Please.
got to enjoy listening to this dude talk. You know what I mean? If you have any suggestions for directors who you would like us to rank, because we're obviously like the guys to do this. You know what I mean? We are the movie ranking.
We're the most
Let us
qualified.
know, and we'll let you know where everybody stands.
Thanks, and again from us at Uninformed Movie Reviews to you. Have a good one.